second trial. Joining us now is Colorado Democratic Congressman Joe Neguse. He is, I should note, one of the impeachment managers. He also sits on the House Judiciary Committee and will have the opportunity to present his case to the Senate once that gets underway in 2 weeks' time. Congressman, good to have you with us. How much will these reports that we are hearing about the former president trying to subvert the election playing the role in his upcoming trial and the argument that you will make?
Well, good to be with you, Eamon. I read that report, and like every American, I suspect my conscience was shocked. I mean, again, it's part of the pattern of disturbing and ultimately lawlessness that conduct that came out of the White House, the former Trump White House, rather. With respect to the trial, I'm not going to get into the evidence that we'll be presenting during the course of the trial, but clearly the report that was detailed in the New York Times points to the pattern of conduct, if you will, that former President Trump and his White House, his administration, engaged in to try to stay in power. And of course, that all culminated, as you know, in the insurrection that took place on January 6th and the storming of our nation's capital.
Fair enough on the evidence, and you don't want to discuss that. Can you share with us whether or not you'll be calling any witnesses in the trial, perhaps Justice Department officials, the Georgia Secretary of State after that infamous phone call that we've all learned about, Brad Raffensperger, and members of Congress?
Well, a couple things, Eamon. I would say, first and foremost, a decision with respect to witnesses will be made by the impeachment manager team. The Speaker has assembled a very talented, experienced team of lawyers. Each of us have practiced law in one form or another as litigators, prosecutors, public defenders. And so we'll make a determination as to what witnesses are necessary, and ultimately we'll do what we need to do to prosecute a compelling case in the United States Senate. I would say this case is a unique one, as you know, because, of course, every United States senator who will be hearing this case was a witness and ultimately a victim of this insurrection that took place on January 6th, as were the managers. I was on the floor on January 6th helping lead the Electoral College certification during the joint session of Congress when this mob stormed the Capitol, the first real breach of this citadel of liberty since the War of 1812. So clearly that is a unique factor in this particular trial. I suspect that everyone in the Senate chamber, both the managers and every senator, will have a very visceral connection and reaction to the compelling evidence that we present because, of course, they lived it.
And yet some of those very same senators who were victims and witnesses to this alleged crime are saying that this is a waste of time and that it would only add fuel to the fire in terms of the divisions in this country. Are you going to address that in the trial itself? And if not, what would you say to those senators on this program right now if they're watching why this trial is not exactly what they are claiming it to be, a waste of time and adding fuel to the fire?
Well, I'd say this, Eamon. As you know, today is a historic day. It's a solemn day. We will proceed with delivering the article of impeachment to the United States Senate. It will be read for the American public to ultimately learn more about the impeachment article that was passed by the House of Representatives. And then tomorrow, the senators will be sworn as we commence with this trial. And every senator will take a solemn oath. And my hope is that every senator will ultimately adhere and fulfill that oath by applying an impartial lens to the facts and the evidence that we present as managers. I believe that if they do so, they'll reach the same conclusion that me and so many of my colleagues in the House, including the number 3 Republican in the House of Representatives, Liz Cheney, have reached, which was that this president summoned a mob, he incited a mob, and he lit the flame of the attack that happened on January 6th. And that was an impeachable offense, a high crime, and ultimately it warrants a conviction in the United States Senate. So I remain hopeful that they will rise to the occasion and will ultimately vote to convict.
Let me just ask you about the security situation in D.C. Political reporting that approximately 5,000 troops will remain to guard the Capitol during the trial. And obviously, we're coming off of the heels of the inauguration, which had 20,000 troops on the streets of D.C. What do you think of those images and of having 5,000 troops around the Capitol to guard Congress during this trial? And what's the message and image like that will send to the world?
Well, I attended the presidential inauguration last week. I was very grateful for law enforcement and for the National Guardsmen and women who have been protecting the Capitol, protecting members and the staff here in the Capitol complex for the last several weeks. That includes 230 members of the Colorado National Guard, who I had a chance to thank last week. Look, clearly, we would like to be in a position to not, ultimately require the level of security that is required currently, but I trust law enforcement to make the right decisions and choices with respect to the personnel that's necessary to secure the Capitol complex. And at the end of the day, we're going to proceed with our job, which is to present the case that we have been charged to present to the United States Senate in the trial that'll commence on February 8th.
But do you believe that we are that divided as a country that that type of security situation warrants itself on the streets of Washington, D.C. for what is a very constitutional and normally mandated event? I mean, I understand that the backdrop is different, but, we've had impeachments in the past and certainly one against this very same president.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm going to defer to the expertise of the law enforcement officials, the Capitol Police, the Sergeant at Arms, and ultimately the National Guard's officials who, have access to the relevant intelligence that would inform decisions as to how many personnel are needed and the like.
Have you been briefed on any security concerns at all since you're going to be involved in that trial?
There have been a series of briefings, for members over the course of the last several weeks. I suspect that those will continue.
All right, Congressman Joe Neguse, sir, always appreciate your time. Best of luck to you. Thank you, sir.